by the time I came into the picture, which was in '87, I finished my education in America and I came back. There was one mill left. All the mill had been sold. All the other mills had been sold. So from 20,000 employees, it was down to 2,500. And there was one textile mill in Mumbai, which was called Victoria Mills. It was in Parel. It was bleeding badly. There was lots of money going in for wages. We hadn't modernized in time. And power loom sector, other unorganized sectors were slowly overtaking in terms of price, in terms of evading taxes, etc. So their product was much cheaper than textile mills. And the government and the labor unions were not allowing textile mills to continue. So this is the time when I came back and I found that I was not welcome in this hemorrhaging textile mill, because my grandfather said, this is not for you, you have no idea about how to run a business, and I will see what to do. And he was already in his 70s. So there was no choice. I started on my own. I had a degree in computer graphics, so I had a master's degree. I wanted to do communication and set up a business of my own, because there was no future in the family business. At least we were not made to believe there was any. And that's how I started in Mumbai. I shifted from Ahmedabad, and I had brought an Apple Macintosh back with me. So I wanted to start a desktop publishing business. And this I'm talking about late 1980s, 88, 89. And as luck would have it, I met somebody, an NRI, who wanted to do the same thing, but he didn't have the skill. So we formed an agreement where he became an equity partner and I brought in my sweat equity. Do you understand the concept of sweat equity? Where somebody brings in the money and you bring in the skills, you bring in your sweat. So we formed one of the first sweat equity deals of that time. Private equity wasn't yet, hadn't come into India. And we started a desktop publishing firm in Mumbai, the first of its kind, with only Apples. And we used to provide desktop publishing and audiovisual services and animation. It was a bit ahead of its time in 1990. So we had to really we found it very difficult to find customers to come to us and move away from their cut and paste job that they used to do. You understand cut and paste versus desktop publishing? Some of you do. So earlier the magazines and publications were done by pasting each line on a piece of artwork. So a page was found manually. And desktop publishing revolutionized that, and you could do it on the computer using a desktop program. So obviously there was a lot of future for it. But when the lesson to learn over here is being the first mover always doesn't have advantages. Because being the first mover, you require to educate your customer. And the time that you spend in educating your customer requires, in the meanwhile, you have to still run your business. So unless you have very deep pockets and ability to sustain the business, it's no good being the first mover. Either that, or you find an equity partner who will support you till your technology is accepted. So this is a lesson to learn for those of you who are planning to have some innovative idea and want to get into the market and be the first mover in the business. And this is a lesson we learned the hard way. We had the top technology. We had the first studio of its kind in India. For 2 years we struggled. And eventually we sold the business to Business India, which was a magazine at that time. And that was my first attempt at being an entrepreneur, which ended in failure. Though it was a great idea, it was ahead of its time. And by this time, my first business had failed, and I was in this situation where I was searching for what to do. And I used to go and sit in this textile mill. It was a mill with, have you ever, any of you seen a mill?
Yes.
Okay. So I used to go and sit in this mill and go in the workshop and just hang around and wonder, try and figure out what to do. And because my grandfather was very unhappy that I was coming there, he had put me in a corner room where it oversaw a waste water area, because the processing plant lets out a lot of wastewater from printing, processing, etc. And that is all dumped in a lake. Then it is supposed to be cleaned up. Water treatment is supposed to happen. I used to sit there and look at this wastewater plant in the middle of Mumbai and wonder that why is there such a big area of land being occupied by wastewater when something could be done with it. So I approached the chairman, which was my grandfather, and said that why don't we do with this something with this wastewater and put in a more efficient unit so we don't have to occupy such a large area of land. We could utilize the land for something else. He just poo-pooed the idea and he said, no, that doesn't make sense. So I approached Deepak Parekh. You heard of Deepak Parekh?
Yes.
So I approached Deepak Parekh and I said, look, I have an idea. We have this textile mill. This is, I'm talking about 1993. That we are in a mill which is in the middle of Mumbai. It has a wastewater plant. I know that the labor unions and the government will not allow sale of land. At that time it wasn't allowed. You know the stratospheric prices that mills have received now. You're aware of it, right? Mumbai mills are getting 3,000 and 5,000 crores for those. But at that time, this was not allowed. This was pre-liberation area, the EDI. Deepak Parekh said, I think it's a great idea. So I had one strong backup. And he introduced me to the top real estate developers in Mumbai. Rahejas and Hiranandans and whatnot. And I was around, I think, your age. 20, 21, 22? You guys around that age? Yeah. So I would sit with Deepak Parekh and he would then invite all these top honchos and we would talk about this wastewater dump, you know. And then 2-3 people came to see this wastewater, what area I was talking about. And they were visionaries. They immediately realized that what this guy is saying is true. Anyway, even now my grandfather refused to meet them. To cut a long story short, within 6 months, we were close to signing a deal which would be unbelievable to anybody at that time. And yet, nobody in the family believed that a 20-year-old guy could do this. So we said, okay, and they were pushing to sell this mill at a pittance. Still, there was a buyer. So I said, and I had a cousin who was with me, he said, look, if you don't want to be part of this deal, then we'll buy you off. By that time, he had married a woman with quite a lot of cash, my cousin. So, you know, that's another thing. Lesson number 3, that the solution to a gridlock where family with lot of assets but no cash is to infuse cash. One time, whether through marriage or however. But if one time the cash comes in, what happens is, I have one asset, you have another asset, you have a third asset. Or I mean, we all own 3 assets. You want one asset, you want one asset, I want one asset. How do we trade our shares in each other's company is to pass the money around. But that first infusion of money has to happen, which by fortuitous circumstances happened with Mr. Deepak Parekh's help. The rest of the family members who didn't believe in us wanted to opt out. So we said, okay, here's the money, give us the shares. So we got the shares from the entire family, which had about 50 members, at a very good deal, good price, because they didn't believe in us. And that was the starting point, that was a changing point in my life. Because from a situation where I never had enough money to do anything, suddenly this deal happened. and I had a substantial capital in the company, of course, and we sold this land to a big real estate developer, and that brought in a lot of money into the company. Me and my cousin decided, by that time everybody else in the family was out, me and my cousin decided that we want to separate even our interests. So we managed to swap shares in such a manner that he got the textile mill part of it and I got some capital to start a completely new business. So that was the beginning. Now this kind of a fortuitous circumstance, how many of you will face, I don't know. But it's again, luck is what? When opportunity meets preparation. That is luck. So we were prepared, we were working hard on this deal, we managed to put it through, and therefore this chunk of money happened. And when you are working hard and you are prepared, actually the whole universe tries to work for you, whatever you call it. It's an amazing thing. It's a secrets. What was that? Huh? Yeah, it really does work, When you want something really badly, when you are totally sincere and you work hard at it, everything transpires to help you. And that's what happened in 1995. And it changed everything. So, again, I was wondering what to do with all this cash. It's an interesting situation to be in. I was looking for an opportunity. I had been through a period where I was an entrepreneur and I had no cash. Then I realized that there are lots of entrepreneurs who have no cash. Maybe I can start a venture capital company and help these entrepreneurs who have no cash to do something. So that's how Victoria Capital Ventures happened with this money. And my area of interest was technology and real estate because my father is an architect. So I knew a lot of builders. And through Deepak Parekh, I knew a lot of builders. And through our family connection, we knew a lot of other textile mills. So we started not quite doing equity deals, but we started doing deals where we acted like financiers, where we had a stake in the profit. So it was not a loan. It was a risk-sharing deal where we invested money and we made money if they made money. But we didn't go into the detail of buying equity, etc. It was just on the books, it looked like a loan. And then the house of MG, which was my ancestral home, which was in decay, came into the market. Again, like the mill, the whole family wanted to sell because it was lying unused. I'll show you how it looked. There were tenants inside, there were 50, 60 owners, and nobody wanted to do anything with it except sell it. So my father, who's an architect, said, why don't you buy it? You have this money, buy this property, and we'll see what to do with it. So it was very easy to convince my family members to sell. And I bought in this company, this property. This property is in the middle of the city. It's with House of CG, which is next door. It's about 120,000 square feet of built-up space. It's the largest mansion of its kind in Ahmedabad. Left standing. There were others. But it's the largest property from that time. Unfortunately, all the others were broken down because nobody really found a use for it. With tenants, this was the terrace. The rest of the house was occupied by tenants. I only had the free access to terrace. So the first place I converted was the terrace into a restaurant. This was how it was. Have you been to House of MG? How many have you been? Very few. Okay. Actually, I would request Wahid to pass around a piece of paper if somebody can let me have a notebook. And I would like your names and telephone, mobile numbers and email ID, please, if you don't mind. You can just pass it. You can just pass it around, right? Then we'll tell you more about what we do. So this is the terrace, and now this is the restaurant now. The famous thing about friends and family. Of course, ownership doesn't mean you are competent to run the business. Therefore, just because you are an owner of the family, owner of the business through your family inheritance, it doesn't mean you are the most competent person. And the smartest owner is one who hires a manager who is smarter than him. The other thing is about cross holdings. It's not a good idea, even in a family, to have too many cross holdings. So if you have 5 brothers and your father has 5 brothers and they all have children, and there are too many people who have a stake in the same pie. So it's better to divide the pie. This is my own lesson. Some people may say work together, etc. But I really believe that in the nuclear family age that we are all moving towards from a joint family, it makes sense to have a smaller pie which is entirely ownership is defined, rather than have a bigger pie where ownership is not defined, because otherwise decision making becomes that much more difficult. And in Ahmedabad there are no other houses left except these 4 that I mentioned. So to expand, we decided to buy up old havelis, which again nobody wants. We bought them at a really low price. But restoring them is a difficult thing, but we are doing that. We are the largest restorers, private restorers in Ahmedabad, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I'm just mentioning that because we are the only ones. But it's again an opportunity. It's an opportunity that we are trying to, and I encourage you to visit our havelis, and the best way to do it is through the walk. There are several heritage walks. You will get to know about our own heritage, and all of you will see a potential in the old city of doing something or the other. We have started, I would also like you to visit our non-business initiatives, because once you start doing business and once it starts doing well, then there is a choice in front of you. Do you want to become a mega corporation, or do you want to focus on something which is close to your heart, which you are doing to the best of your ability, and you want to be the best at what you do through innovation? Now these two don't necessarily go hand in hand. Because if you start expanding and becoming a mega corporation, somehow the quality doesn't remain personalized anymore. Somehow there is a compromise in everything that you do. So I brought this book that I recommend all of you should read before you decide on this choice. It's called Small is Beautiful by E.F. Schumacher. It's an old book, but it's worthwhile reading because it will really make you think that what is development, what is growth, what is personal growth, as much as what is good for the country, what is good for your neighborhood, what is good for the city, and what is eventually good for you, which is good for your soul. And those of you who saw Avatar, the movie, I mean, there are more and more people beginning to recognize that just having a lot of money, having a mega corporation is not the way to go. It's not making you happier. I can assure you that Mr. Mukesh Ambani, sitting in his 1 billion house that he has just inaugurated, is no happier than you and me. You know, I can assure you. So whether you want to be Mr. Mukesh Ambani, which is not a bad thing, I'm not saying that, but whether it will make you happier, or whether you want to do something at a small scale but do it so well that it gives you an inner satisfaction, is the choice which all of us have to make during our career path. And for myself, I have decided that I want to be small but do things to the best of my ability and be a change agent in my area of work. I will finish my story there because that's where I am now. I wish now to spend more of my time in education, in trying to create opportunities for my community, trying to retain. My motto has become विरासत को संभाल के विकास कैसे करने का. So that is, I'm dedicating my my career and my time and my resources on this simple thing, and because that gives me the most satisfaction. It in fact allows me to discover who I am. Thank you. No, I think the choice, another choice you have to make is whether you want to follow the system and become a victim of the system, or do you want to, I like to give an example. These days, suddenly, since the last 2 months, nobody respects the traffic light. Everybody just goes, because there is no cop standing. I don't know how many of you go in the city, but I see nobody stops. It's the herd mentality. I always stop. Even when I hear honking and everything, and I say, look, I'm going to stop till the red light becomes green. What I'm trying to illustrate is that you don't necessarily go with the pack. What is happening in the old city is people are assuming that things only work in a certain way, by greasing palms or by giving some corporator some money or whatever. But we have completely refrained from that because we are not doing anything which requires favor. Therefore, what has happened is we get no permissions. For our projects in the old city, we have no permissions. But I still build. I've got a break notice from the corporation that we will demolition notice for all my projects. But they never come and demolish. So I am playing the system by doing something which is right, and the corporation is playing its game to intimidate me as much as possible, thinking I will get intimidated. But when the public sees that this person has a credibility and whatever he is doing is visible, it's not hidden, it's visible. If you see Mangaldas Haveli, that brochure, we've got a closure notice for it. They can come and lock it up anytime. Whereas right next door, somebody broke down such a building and built a 4-story matchbox apartment, nothing happened to them. So, to answer your question, yes, of course you will face, but you slowly learn how to deal with the system. And see, most important is to take a decision whether you want to stop at the red light or move with the crowd.